This is Gina. So today I don't really have anything in mind to make. Usually I sit down and make a design long before I sit down in front of my camera to make something for you. Even if it's something simple, difficult, whatever. I either make it and then film the front of it and film it while I have a particular idea, whatever. But today I don't really have one. And I have had requests in the past to show my designing process. So I thought, well, I'm going to do a little bit of designing and show you just how I kind of work through it. So what I do generally is I just pick a bunch of beads. I go into my bead room, and this is why I keep a large stash of beads, because they are what inspires me. So I will just go through and decide I want to work with fire polish, or I want to work with crystal, or I have something in particular that has inspired me a lot and I want to make something with it. Or I just pick colors that complement each other. Today, that's what I have done. I've just picked some colors that complement each other. I have some bugle beads and some little 11/0 gold beads that match each other because I bought these at a bead store a while ago because I thought they were pretty, and I always thought, well, I'll do something with bugle beads, and never did. So I pulled out my bugle beads, and then I decided to find something that would complement them. Now, I like this crystal. This is actually a Thunder Polish 6mm Bicone crystal, and it's just kind of a mystic color. It's got an AB finish. I think it might be an AB topaz. I'm not positive, but I think that's what it might be. And I have plenty of them. And I never know how big my project's going to be till I get started, so I want to make sure I have plenty. And so I have a lot of those, so I thought, well, they were pretty. I have a lot of these little 4mm round opal-y finished crystals, so I pulled some of those out. And some Super Duo, since I haven't used Super Duos in a while. So I have this turquoise luster Super Duo. And then I have some little 2x3 rondelle crystals. I don't know that I'll actually use them or not. I may change my mind on all the beads. I don't know. Or I'll use this, that, and the. I try to keep with what I chose. But if, as I'm designing, something doesn't work or I want to change something out, I will do that too. So let's go ahead and get started just putting some beads together and see what we come up with. Okay, so since this is a designing video, I'm going to keep the beads in the picture a little bit, for a little while. I may zoom in, zoom out, whatever I decide to do. But first, I'm going to use some 8-pound fire line. That's pretty much my go-to thread. So I'm going to put about a wingspan of 8-pound fire line onto a size 10 beading needle. Now, when you work with Super Duos, you usually bend up your needle, so I start with one that's kind of bent already instead of one of my brand new ones. So then I'm going to start, I think I want to start with the 4mm rounds in Super Duos. So I'm just going to pick up a 4mm round, a Super Duo, a 4mm round, a Super Duo, a 4mm round, a Super Duo, a 4mm round, and a Super Duo. So if you're making this along with me, because I intend to have some kind of finished product here, you're going to start with 4mm round, end with a Super Duo, have 4 of each of the beads onto your needle. And we're going to pull these down to the end. And I'm just going to tie them. I'm not going to leave a long tail. Don't really know what I'm making, so there's no point. And usually I sew back through with embellishments, and I don't need one anyway. So I'm just going to leave long enough to extend it in case I do want to use it. And then, once I've tied my 4 beads together, or my beads that I put on here together, I'm going to sew back through them, just generally, because that's what you always have to do when you have your first base. You should always sew through them, because this is where you're going to start your foundation. So I'm going to sew back through all of my beads that I put onto my thread. I have in my mind little segments, kind of a square segments that either I can make a bracelet out of or a necklace by putting them into kind of diamond shapes. So I'm going to see how my first component turns out that I create, and then I'll decide from there what I want to do with it. So I've sewn all the way around. This is where my knot is. I'm going to go ahead and sew back up past my knot into the next bead in super duo, and then I'm going to hop up into the super duo because of course that will be my next step, is to add something to my super duos. So I have decided, well, I am deciding as a matter of fact, to pick up a 6mm bicone, a super duo, and check your super duos as you pick them up. Make sure they have 2 holes if you didn't check them in advance. And let me make sure all the ones in my base have 2 holes. Yep. So I'm coming out of this super duo here. I'm going to go into this super duo. I picked up this combination onto my needle. And I'm just going to go from super duo to super duo. This generally will make a square shape when you add 3 beads like this. 2 bicones in a super duo, you'll pretty much always end up with a square shape. And that's what I want. So I'm going to pick up another combination of super duo and bicones and go from bicone to bicone, just like that. And then I am going to do the same thing again. 6mm bicone, super duo and a 6mm bicone, and go from super duo to super duo. And this is what I have so far. And I will pick up another super duo bicone, or bicone, super duo, bicone. And now I will go into this bicone here, my very first one I started in, or super duo I mean, and the bicone behind it, and the super duo on the other side if I can do it. And now I have my little square diamond shaped thing, but it's loose, so I'm coming out of this super duo here. I'm just going to sew all the way around all the outside beads to reinforce it. Not only does that make everything tighter and firmer, it also ensures that you have a nice amount of thread, a stronger amount of thread when you're using crystals, and they can always cut your thread. So Fireline is pretty strong, but you just want to make sure that you have it to where it won't fall apart. So I'm just sewing all the way around. And I think I want to get to a corner super duo. I think I just want to make another unit. I don't think I want to expand on this. I'm going to leave some of them out so that I can embellish later if I lay them out. However I lay them out, I know if I've got this outer layer of bicones, or not bicones, but super duos, then I know that I can do something between them to embellish whatever it is I end up making. So I'm just going to connect my next unit here. So for my next component, I'm going to go up into the super duo and then into the top hole of the super duo on the corner. And now I have to figure out how to make this component again, but I have to do it outside in, because I started with the inside here. Of course, I'm on the outside of this unit, so it has to connect to the outside of the next unit, so I have to make the outside first. So I'll just count how many beads I have in this, and knowing that I'm going to share this super duo, I'll subtract 1 super duo. On my outside here, I have 8 crystals. So the way I'll do it is I'll just count 8 crystals as I put them on, and put a super duo in between each. So I'm just going to pick up bicone, super duo, bicone, and that's 2. I don't even count the super duos, just the bicones. It makes it easier for me. That's 3 bicones. Then a super duo, 4 bicones, then a super duo, 5 bicones, a super duo, 6 bicones, and a super duo, 7 bicones, super duo, 8 bicones. So I'll scooch these down so you can see them. That will be my outside layer. I'm going to count them to make sure I have the right one so I don't get this weird component. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 bicones. And then I am going to go into the opposite side. Now I know this outside layer looks like there's only 4 super duos, but there isn't, because the super duos are also between here. They're just pointing inwards, so you can't forget those. When you're trying to design something, you have to make sure that you have those too. So I generally know that there's a super duo between each of my beads, so I just count my bigger beads. It makes it less confusing. So now that I have my 8 bicones with the super duo in between, I will come and I'll start with a bicone and end with a bicone. I'll come back around and come into the super duo that I'm connected to. And now this is all loose and wobbly, so I know I have to sew back through all of them. And I'm just gonna go through all of them. Okay, so now I have gone through until I'm coming back out the super duo I started in, but now I need to connect my middle section together. So I want it to be every other bicone or every other super duo that it's connected to my middle beads here. So I'm going to sew up through this bicone. I'm going to go into this super duo, and then I'm going to go into the top of the super duo. And then I will pull this super duo and this super duo together with my middle bead to pull the inside like this. So what I mean is by that is I'm going to pick up one of my 4mm rounds now. And you can see here that I've got 2 on either side and a super duo, and then 2 on either side, and then on the inside I have this little bead. So I'm going to pick up, I'm coming through this way, so I'm going to pick up this one over here. I'm just going to skip this super duo, go over here, and I'm going to pull my thread through, and that should kind of bring the super duos towards the center like that. Now I'm going to skip this super duo, I'm going to bring in this super duo, and I'm going to pick up another 4mm round, and I'm just going to go from super duo to super duo like this. And then I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to skip this super duo, pick up this super duo, and pull them into the center like this. And then I will skip this super duo and go back into the first super duo that I started in. So I'll just go into here and I'll pull it all together. And this one feels like it wants to poof a little bit, but I think I can straighten it back out. Now sometimes you make something and it doesn't work and you have to take it apart, but I think this is going to be fine. So I'm just going to sew through all of my super duos and 4mm round beads. until I get all the way back to where I started. Reinforcing everything. Now, we want to get over to this super duo to do our next component. So we have to sew up over to it. So I'm going to go through here. Now, if I come up through this super duo here, if I come through the bottom and then come up through the top, I'm going to be aimed this way. Or even if I, yeah, then my thread will be coming the wrong way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew all the way past where I want my thread to actually come out. So I want my thread to come out of this one, and I know that if I come through this bead, this super duo, then go up through the top of this super duo, I will be coming in the right direction to get to this bead. So you have to think about where your thread path is going when you're designing. So just go through this one, and then we'll go through just the bottom of the super duo here. And this is where your bead gets, or your needle gets all messed up. Sometimes it's hard to get up through the top holes here. So I'm going to come through the super duo here. So here I am at the bottom of this super duo. I want to come up through the top of it. So I'm going to come up through here, just like this. And you can see that I'm going to go through the bicone at the same time. I'm just going to come up. All I'm trying to do is work my way over to this super duo so I can add my next component. So now I'm coming out of the bicone. I'm going to go into the super duo, and then I'm going to go into the top hole of the super duo to position myself for my next component. So now I have two little components. And I prepared, I don't really know exactly where I'm going, what I'm going to make, but I do know that I can embellish it. I've left myself open so I can do more. So I don't just have to connect simple little components together. I know that I can play with this out here and add something more to it. So now I'm going to build another component. What I'm going to do then is, I think, the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and just pick up my bicone crystals. I'm going to count 8 of them, and between each one I'll place a super duo. And like I said before, check your super duos. So I'll just pick up a super duo, or a bicone, a super duo, a bicone. So I have 3 bicones on here. Pick up a super duo, 4 bicones, a super duo, 5 bicones, a super duo, 6 bicones, a super duo, 7 bicones, a super duo, it went away, 8 bicones. So I'm going to drop them down. I'm going to count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And if we started with the bicone, we end with the bicone. Let me back off a little so you can see. Start with the bicone, end with the bicone. Make sure you have 8 of them with a super duo in between each one. And then come back around and come through the opposite side of the super duo that you're exiting. And then again, come back around and just start sewing back through all of your beads. Until you get back to the super duo that you started in. And then again we have to do the inside of our component. So we're now going to go up into the bicone, and then the next bicone that's right next to our super duo, and then into the super duo next to it. Once we go into the bottom hole of that super duo, we'll hop up into the top hole. Now our thread is coming out this way, so we need to build our center this way. So we're going to skip the super duo in between, and so we're coming out of this super duo, we're going to skip a super duo, we're going to pick up the next super duo, and we're going to put a 4mm round in between them, like this. And just pull. And then do it again, pick up a 4mm round, fold in your next, skip a super duo, go into the top hole of the next super duo, if you can get coordinated to do it, because I can't seem to, like that. And then we're going to do it again. We're going to pick up a 4mm round bead. Now these beads, these middle beads, they could be even another 6mm bicone, or they could be a 4mm bicone, they could be a pearl, they can be whatever you want. This is pretty basic beginning component that I'm doing, so you can put all kinds of different kinds of beads in it. Most of them will work as long as you either stay with the 4 or 6mm bicone around. You should be fine, because I could see this being a pearl in the middle. It might be really pretty. Now we're going to go from this one to this one. So we put our last one in, we're going to go into the first one we started in, pick up our 4mm round, go into the super duo, and the 4mm round after it. Now I've got my basic component established. I'm going to sew all the way around these again. I'm going to work my way back through. I'm going to, after I sew all the way around, I will come back around until I am exiting this side of a super duo, so I can come up and continue my thread path. I'll just go ahead and show you one more time. So let's go up through all of our beads. Secure our middle crystals. Make sure that the component is not sloppy. It's nice and tight and neat and strong. Okay, so I've come all the way around. I'm just going to sew back halfway around until I get to the side where I need to make my next component. So I'm going to go into the next few beads. Now I want to get up here, so I'm going to sew through this 4mm round, whoops, sorry about that, into the bottom hole of the super duo here, and then try to get myself into the top hole of the super duo and the bicone next to it, and then I will sew into my super duo here, my connecting super duo, and then I will go into the top hole and I will start my next component. We will make several more components. Now I don't know exactly where I'm going, so I'm going to make them until I decide what I want to do, and we will be back. So we'll just continue making components. So I wanted to show you the thought process going on off camera here. Now I made these little units, and you can see how they're starting to curve, and I can see how I can embellish here, a wider one out here and a closer one here, and make a nice little necklace. So I think I am going to make a necklace out of this that we've started today. But I also thought that I wanted to see if all bicones would work. First of all 6mm bicones with this component, and as you can see, it works fine. And I also connected them the same way, but then I went sideways. So I thought that this could make a really nice big bold bracelet all the way around, like a cuff. And I might even be able to embellish something around the edges to hold it together. So this might be my next video or so. So sometimes when I see something else happening, when I see two things starting to occur with my beads as I'm designing, I will go ahead and either try it. If I think that, oh, well, a Bicone might have looked prettier in there, I might try it. And then if I see something else occurring, because I like the curve of this, and I think this is going to make a really pretty little summery necklace. So I'm going to keep this. But I also saw this happening, so I went ahead and put that aside. Now I have a sample that I can refer to later and know that I can design something from this too. So I'm going to put that aside, and then I'm just going to continue. Since I have decided that I want to make this into a necklace, I'm going to continue making several units until I get the length I want, and then I will be back. So we're going to make a necklace today, and I want you to just go ahead and make more units, and I will tell you exactly how many in a moment. Okay, so I have made 20 units of my little components. This comes out to be just around 20 inches, I believe. Let me see. I'm going to measure it real quick. Yeah, it's right about 20 inches. So I know that I am going to turn this into a collar type of necklace just from the shape that it has taken while I've done this. So if I'm going to cinch this in on the top with my super duos, with my embellishment to make it a round shape and hold its round shape, I know I'm going to lose some of my length. So what I will do is I'll consider my clasping at this point. Now, if I'm going to make this, if it's 20 inches and I know I'm going to lose some of my length because of the way I'm going to embellishment, then I know that I'm probably going to need to add an extender because I don't know exactly how much length I'm going to use. Now, an 18-inch necklace collar should fit about most everybody. It's not really small people would be kind of big, and really big people would be kind of small. But 18-inch collars should be fairly good regular size. But you want to make sure you accommodate for the fact that some people don't want it real tight. So we're going to have to put some kind of extender on this. So what I've decided to add into the mix is a couple wire protectors and a little length of sterling silver chain and a spring ring clasp. Now you could use a lobster claw, or you can just make another couple units of your components and put on a toggle. However you want to. At this point, I've used enough crystal, and if you want to kind of conserve on how much crystal you use, or if you just don't have enough, then you'll consider an extender. So at this point, before I start all of my embellishments, I'm going to go ahead and put one side of my clasp on because I'm right here. I'm exiting my last component. So I am going to now pick up, let's see, I think I'm going to go with, I'm exiting the Super Duo. I think I'm going to go with 2 11-0 seed beads. Now remember, I haven't done any of this before, so if I mess up and I have to take it apart, then I will. But I'm going to do 2 11-0 seed beads and a crystal, a 4mm round crystal. And then I'm going to pick up a wire protector and go through one end of it like this. Pull it down to the end. And then I'm going to go through the other end of it. And as I pull it through, I will hold on to my wire protector to kind of guide my thread, because I've got my thread kind of crossed. Let's see what I've got here. Yeah, it went down into the divot on top of the wire protector just fine. So then I will go back into my crystal. And just the crystal, not the 11-0s underneath it, if I can get around it. There we go. I'll pull that wire protector down. Now I have to squeeze it together to get it to be the right shape. But at this point, I'm just going to pick up 2 more 11-0s. and go through the other side of my super duo here. This method usually works really well when clasping, so I'm going to sew back through all of this again to make sure that everything is going to be secure and nothing is going to break. So after I go through my wire guardian again and down through my crystal again, then I'm going to cinch my wire protector shut a little bit so that my thread will pull nice and neat as I finish this up. So I'm just going to squeeze this shut so that it's on top of my crystal nice and neat like this. Might even do it again. There we go. Now I'm going to finish my I'm going to come out of this. Then I am going to go down into my super duo. Now, the problem is I want to do the inside embellishments first, so I know what I have to work with as far as the spread between the outside. So I have to figure out how I'm going to get around and get my needle in the right direction so that my needle needs to be coming out of this side of this super duo. Actually, this side of this super duo. So if I sew around and I come up through this one, then yes, my thread, when I come up through the top, my thread will be pointing down. So I'm going to sew around all of these beads right here. So you just have to think about what way your thread path is going to make sure your design is going to actually work. If not, you can always do a little tiny half hitch knot and turn your thread around, but if you don't have to, that's better. And now you can see the end of my necklace is ready for clasping. So I can start doing something else. A lot of people do clasping very last, but if you follow me, you know I never do. If I'm there and it's available, I get it ready because it's just so much easier that way. For me, anyway. I don't know what's easier for anyone else. So as you're sewing through, like I said before, super duos against a crystal that's kind of angled can be very difficult to get through. It's going to bend your needle up, but it can be done, so just do it. Just do it. Okay. So I'm working all the way around until I'm going to get up here, and then my problem is, what the heck am I going to put between these super duos? So let's see. Now I'm going to go into this bottom of the super duo here. And it's the very top super duo on my very last unit right here. So I want to go into the top hole. Now my thread is facing the right direction. I can work down on the inside of my necklace here. So I'm going to turn it so I can start embellishing the inside. Now I have no clue what I want to do. I was thinking about a bugle bead between. So the problem with bugle beads is they can kind of be sharp. So I thought if I had them touching the super duos, it'd probably be okay. Well, let's see. I'm just going to slide one here. If I need to, I can put a seed bead on either side. That's why I put out some 11-0s. Just in case. I knew I'd need it for my clasping, but just in case I wanted to cushion the side of my bugle bead. But if my bugle bead lays directly on the super duos and not on my thread isn't wrapped around it, it shouldn't cut it. So I'm going to try this and see what it looks like. It might not even work because I want to make a round shape and these are straight. And these are pretty good size ones. Let's see. I'm not sure how big they are. Let's see if I have another package and I can tell you how big they are. Well, they're not labeled. So I'll measure them and at the beginning of the video I will tell you how big they are. I think they're 7mm in length. Could be, no, they'd have to be closer to 12. 7 is not, it just can't be. No, no, no. I'm being dumb. Okay, so I'm just going to measure it. And I will tell you. Okay. 5. They are 12mm long. So, now we know. I'm just going to slide these through and see what happens. And just, and there's a closed super duo. So, if I have a closed super duo, I try to gently ream it out. I have these really skinny little, oh, and I broke it. Okay, so I've gotten several bugle beads into this, and as you can see, this is pulling this way too tight. This isn't going to work because we need it to be a bigger, rounder opening. We want to cinch them in, but not so tight that it's going to curl. So this isn't going to work. Either if I continued it, it would also, I could do it, but then my necklace would have a ruffle to it, which I guess would be fine if you wanted a ruffle, but I don't. So this isn't going to work, so I'm going to try something else. Okay, so I took those bugle beads out. What I'm going to try, I think, is, this might be too wide if I do it this way, but I'm going to try. I want to get a little crystal in here too. So I'm going to pick up a seed bead, a crystal, a bugle bead, a crystal, and a seed bead, and see what happens. This might be too wide, but we're going to try it and see what happens. Let's try a couple of them and see if we like it. So I'm using a 4mm round crystal. I could use my 2x3 rondelles that I have out, but they're just an AB clear, and my ones in here are opaly. I'd like to have it match a little better, bring the opal out a little bit more. So I'll see if it works. Otherwise, I could use a smaller bead. But for color's sake, I'm going to try not to. So that's, again, let's see. This might make it really wide. Yeah, this is not going to work at all. So that's just going to make it straight. Now, if I was making a bracelet, that'd be fine. So we're going to eliminate something else now. Okay, so my first thought was seed bead, bugle bead, seed bead. Actually, I've had a couple other thoughts. I wanted to bring them up maybe too. I could bring a bugle bead like this, with the crystal in between, and then tie them all together. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll try that. But let's see. So we're going to do seed bead, bugle bead, 2x3 rondelle, bugle bead, seed bead. Now, yes, this is a lot wider, but this is going to, it's going to bend. It's going to have a bend like this, and then I can join the crystals together. So, with crystals in between. So I can make this really fancy, or I could just put something simple in between, like seed bead, bugle bead, seed bead. But, you know, I think I'll try the fancier angle here, because I can do that, and then I can put maybe a bugle bead in between and make this a little fancier. So you can do all kinds of different things while you're designing, and my beads just kind of decide for me what I'm going to do next. I had it in my mind to have this first of all, that was my very first thought, but wasn't sure if the beads I chose were fancy enough to make it this way, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I think it'd be prettier if I made it all in clear or something, but I'm just going to do this and see what happens. So I'm picking up a seed bead, a bugle bead, a 2x3 crystal rondelle, and then a bugle bead, and a seed bead, like this. And I'm just going from super duo to super duo. I'm going to do this all the way to the end and see what it looks like. I think this is where I'm going to stay, and then I will figure out what I want to do for my next embellishment to tie the top of it together, and then I will work down to the bottom. Okay, so I have gone all the way through doing this embellishment, and I think this one's going to work out fine. I'm starting to get ideas for my second way to connect them together, and I think it'll be fine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm coming out of the end here. After putting my last embellishment on, I'm going to cut this tail off because it's just going to be in my way. So I'm going to cut the tail and sear it down, seal it off, and then I am going to sew. I'm in this top hole of the super duo. I'm going to make sure my embellishment is pretty tight, not too tight. And then I'm going to go down into the bottom hole of my super duo right here. So let's do this so you can see. So I'm coming out of the top here. I'm going to go into the bottom. And I'm going to pull. Make sure my embellishment is okay. And then I'm going to sew all the way around until I come up and out of this. Oops, I'm not even in camera. Oh, so sorry, people. Okay, so now I'm coming out of this bottom hole here. I'm going to sew all the way around until I come to this super duo so that I can pop up to the top here. So I can get it prepared for my clasp also. So I'm just going to sew down. All the way around all these beads. And like I said, this can be the part that's a pain with super duos and crystals next to each other, but it seems to be going pretty smoothly. Okay, now I'm in my top little super duo, and I'm going to put my wire guardian on just like I did the other side. No point in showing you that, I already showed you that. So I'm going to do that and then I'll be back. The only difference I'm going to make on this side is to avoid a jump ring. Some of my jump rings are just not very good. The ones I ordered last time they're just not cut very nicely. So I want to kind of avoid having to use it and recut them and try to make them work. So I'm just going to slide my spring ring right onto my wire guardian as I'm sewing it on, and then I'll just sew through the wire guardian with the spring ring clasp on it. Now I'm going to put chain on the other side, on this side, so I can just open a link in my chain and put it on there and avoid jump rings. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to continue. It's exactly the same way to put it on. I just slid my spring ring on. So I put my wire guardian on with my little connection here, just like the other side, my spring ring, all that stuff, and now I'm coming out of the top of this super duo here. Now I need to get back up so that I can work out of these crystals now to do my second embellishment on the top. I'm coming out this direction of this super duo, so I'm going to sew all the way around to the bottom one so I can hop back up to the top here. So, because I've got to get back to the super duo. So I'm going to go into the bottom hole, and then I'm going to sew all the way around this entire unit again so I can put my thread in the right path to continue my top embellishment. So I'm just going to sew around until I get there. Oops. Now I'll go through these. I'm through this one and my super duo. And now that I'm in the bottom hole of this super duo, I can hop up into the top and I'm in the right direction here to start. So I'm going to go through this super duo. I'm going to sew through this little 11-0 seed bead, the bugle bead, and up into the 2x3 crystal rondelle. So, get my needle positioned here. Get up into all these beads and come out of this crystal on the top here. And pull. Now, what I want to do, and we'll see if it works, is I want to pick up a 11-0 seed bead, a bugle bead, an 11-0 seed bead, and just go from crystal to crystal like this to finish off my top. Yeah, I think that's probably going to work, so I'm going to try it and see what happens. I might not be able to. It might be too straight and won't lay correctly. We will find out. Hopefully it'll work. So let's see. And if it doesn't, then I'll just have to put some crystals or something in between to pull them together instead of bugle beads. But I really kind of like this triangle look. And if I can do it, I will do it. If I can't, I won't. That's about all there is to it. Okay. Just create some kind of different look. Now that's the basics of my design. Is I always just start with a simple component and then I make my designs fancier with all my embellishments. Now I can do really complicated embellishments. I can do embroidery. I can do all the different things. Have a lot of people tell me, "Oh, your stuff is so simple." When you're making a video, you have to make sure that people can follow you. You know, you can make these beautiful, elaborate designs, but if people can't follow you, it isn't any good. Not to mention the fact that when you make something simple to start with, you have a perfect basis to make something very fancy by just adding to it. Embellishments can make the simplest of things look incredibly complicated, fancy, whatever you want them to look. So don't ever think that just because you're creating a basic component that you're not a good beater. It's not true. I can sit here and add all kinds of crazy things and do all kinds of incredible stitches and stuff. I don't want to. So, not for my videos. And it's just not, people just can't follow them. But anyway, here we go. We're just going to see. And when things don't work, you just pull it out and start again. And come up with all kinds of different things to do. So I'm going to do this all the way to the end. And if it works out, great. If it doesn't, we'll find something else to do. Okay, so I've gone all the way around with this embellishment. I went ahead and attached some chain. I had to use a jump ring, darn it. But I cut it so it fit right. And then I put a little jump ring and attached some chain simply because I'm worried about the functionality of this design. So I want to make sure with where I have placed my clasp that this shape is actually going to work, and I don't know that it is. So I'm going to go up here and secure my thread a little bit, get it to the point to where I can do my outside embellishment, but I want to make sure I'm going to slip it on my neck, and I'm going to make sure that this is going to lay correctly, because if it isn't, then I can't use it. So I'm going to go down through here. Of course, I could probably draw it together by adding another bugle bead or something here. And if I were to do that, let's see, I would have to go tie some thread on and do it to the other side and change the way that I started everything on my embellishment. I would have to come out of the super duo here on the top. Let me see if this is even going to work. See, that might tie it together better, but I don't think it's going to. As a matter of fact, that's not going to work. So, I'm going to bring my thread around where everything stays, and I'm going to go try this on and see if it's going to work. If it is, we'll continue. If it isn't, we'll do something else. So in case this does work, I'm going to show you how I'm going to bring the thread around. Otherwise, you'll be stuck and you'll be mad at me. So I am going to go down into the bottom of I'm coming out of this Super Duo right here on top. I am going to go into the bottom hole, and I'm going to sew around my outside unit here, as I have been doing when I need to get around, because we need to get to this outside Super Duo. So I'm going to sew here and here. Bad part about this is if I decide I don't like the inside, then I have to pull this all out, and that can be hard, but I can do it. So down into here, and then I'm just going to pull this through. Oops. Now I'm in the Super Duo where I want to start my outside embellishment. I'm just going to go into the top hole here, just like that. Now I'm going to go try this on and see if it works. If it does, I'll show you it on one of my models, how it's going to lay. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I don't know how great of a picture this is. It's on, my camera's on tripod, so it's very difficult for me to, and it doesn't zoom out very much. But anyway, here's the back of it. And this is how it lays. So right here on a real neck, as long as you use your extender, it lays okay. It just will be on either side right here. So this does work. And so we're going to continue. Okay, so let's continue. Let's start an outside embellishment of the outside of the Super Duos, the ones we have left here. You can see while I'm designing. My bead mat looks a little different than when I'm making my regular videos. I have stuff everywhere when I'm designing. Anyway, this is what it looks like so far. Let's see it right there. So now I am going to bring it up here, and we're going to do this outside embellishment. I'm coming out of the top of this Super Duo here, and I was going to do something like a fanned out bugle bead, but I don't think I want to. I think I've decided that I just want to add some of my gold 11/0 seed beads down on the bottom between some 4mm round opal crystals, just to make like a little fan between, or a little loop of crystals. I was going to do something in the way of fanning the bugle beads, but it's awfully hard on thread, and I don't know that it's going to lay right with the inside that I've designed now. So I'm going to rethink my initial impulse and do something different. Besides, I want to bring some more of this crystal out in my design, so I'm going to open another package of my 4mm rounds, and I'm just going to figure out an embellishment with it. Let me throw some more stuff all over my bead mat, because you know there's not enough crap on here as is. So here we go. Another big old huge mess. Back off so you can see my huge mess. So now I need a few more 11/0 seed beads too, but I've got enough out to start with. So, and I'll probably have to extend my fire line before I get done with this embellishment, but none of that matters right now. So I think I'm going to start with an 11/0 seed bead, a crystal, 2 11/0 seed beads, 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 and a crystal, and 1 11/0 seed bead. And see how big of a loop that makes. So this is what I have. I have 1 11/0 a crystal, 2 11/0 a crystal, 2 11/0 a crystal, 2 11/0 a crystal, 2 11/0 a crystal, and 1 11/0. And then I'm going to go into the next Super Duo top hole here on my necklace. So from let's get all this stuff out of the way so you guys can see what I'm doing. From here to here. Just like that. I think that's a nice, good size loop. So I'm going to do that again. So basically I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 5 crystals. I start with one 11-0 seed bead, a crystal, and then 2 11-0 seed beads between each of the rest of them. So 1, and then a crystal, 2, and then a crystal, 2 11-0s, and then a crystal. Come here, crystal. 2 11-0s, and a crystal. And then 2 11-0s, and a crystal, and 1 11-0. I'm just going to bring it into the next super duo. You can see how that's starting to form. Now I'm going to go all the way around my necklace and see how I like it. If I like it, I'll keep it. If I don't, I'll do something else. Okay, so I've decided I did like that embellishment, so I went all the way to the end and continued the same embellishment until I got to my very last super duo. I'm coming out of the last hole of my super duo, so I'm going to make sure that my last embellishment is nice and tight and not messed up, and this is always right where I find a mistake. I made a mistake right here. So I'll pull all this out and fix that mistake. Or maybe just for the sake of doing this, maybe I won't. Normally I go through, and I will go through and fix that if I decide I'm going to sell this piece. But right now, because I have 2 little beads together there, I would rather have that fixed. But right now, as this film is really long and I'm getting tired of this design, I simply am going to go up here and I am going to go into the top hole and start to sew around. And normally my first design that I make, because I always make 2 before I usually put it on film. My first one, I allow mistakes, I allow strange little things to happen, and then my second one, as I'm making it, I will change those things as I make either the piece on film, or I make a separate one to make sure that I can correct those things. Now in this one, I would change the way I clasped it. I would change a few of the little mistakes in the embellishments. I would change a few things here and there, and then I would make my film. And that way my piece, my finished piece on my film for you guys would be better. However, since we're doing this of the design process, we're kind of stuck with what I made. But that does not stop you from changing the way it's clasped, or changing the beads, or changing, because normally I'll pick even different beads I think are going to look better, or whatever I think is going to make my piece better, I will do on the second one that I do on film. I will make the piece and then I will film my intro with that piece and then I will put that at the beginning of my film when I edit. So it looks like it's already been all done, but a lot of times I'm designing it or changing some of the design as I do it. So what I've done is I've just sewn around, trying to secure my piece of thread here. I've sewn all the way around this unit, and then I'm just going to tie it off. Now when I decide that I want to fix this, where that little tiny embellishment mistake is, I'll just cut this embellishment here, pull it out all the way to where I've made the mistake. I'll extend my fire line and fix it. It's not that big of a deal, so I can take care of that. I can sew around this a little bit more, but since I'm going to cut this to fix it anyway, I'm just going to sew a couple of beads, and right there's fine. And I'm going to cut this off, and then I'm going to sear it with a lighter for the sake of having it. Actually, it's short enough. It's all right. I'm just going to leave it because I'm going to take it apart anyway. And then I'm going to show you what we have just created. This is what it looks like. I thought that perhaps I'd want to change this clasping if I were to make a second design, because a lot of times I'll make my first one and then I'll perfect it a little bit more before I put it on film. Or as I'm putting it on film, I'll change the things that I didn't like on the first one. But I went and put this on my mother's neck. It hung fine on my neck, but I wanted to make sure, so I went and put it on my mother's neck, and this hangs beautifully. So I would not change the design back here. What I would do is use a little bit bigger chain, because my spring ring, it's difficult to put it through as one of the links, and you have to put it through the links. So what I think I'd do is just join some jump rings together and make it to where you can get it through, and you don't really need this much chain. I thought you would, but you really don't. But it does lay perfectly, and it looks absolutely fabulous on the neck. So I think we did good. Bye-bye.